For some unknown reason, everything this guy writes down becomes a nightmarish reality. Is it possible to prevent it? Find out the answer in this recap of the movie in the house at a teacher's meeting. The principal talks about a new school policy. Students are now required to wear a school uniform to make sure everyone is equal, and all the teachers support the proposal. We are shown a crowd of students wearing precisely the same uniform, boys and girls, blondes and brunettes with different hairstyles, weights, and skin colors. They are all students of this school. Then we meet Jermaine, the leader Judicia, who is sitting at home checking papers. His wife comes home and they start talking about life. Jermaine complains about how untalented his students are. However, one of them, Claude, is not as hopeless as the others. So Jermaine decides to give him a B for his essay. Then we see the literature class. Jermaine wants to teach his pupils how to write an essay properly after the class the guy mentioned before Claude comes up to the teacher as they discuss his story. And everything would be fine if not for the fact that the guy speaks very badly of his family and friends. In the essay, we listen to Claude read his writings in it. He describes in detail his friendship with a nice curly-haired guy named Raphael. They spend a lot of time together, most often at Raphael's house. Jermaine goes to the author's gallery, the Minotaur's Labyrinth, the place of work of his wife. They discuss one of the paintings to be sold and the problems of the gallery, which may be closed due to losses. Jermaine talks again about his student Claude and reads a second chapter of his essay again. He writes in a very angry and arrogant manner. Claude comes to Raphael's house there. He sees his mother with a tape measure in her hands. The woman offers the boys lunch and gets back to her work. Claude looks at her with interest. He seems to really like her the next day. Jermaine goes to the psychologist to review Claude's personal file there. We learned that he is a humble guy who only lives with his disabled father, Jermaine, and explains Claude's mistakes and gives the students leave voluminous books, and the boy hands the teacher the next chapter of his essay. Claude spends more and more time in the company of Raphael. He helps him with his mouth, and Raphael's father offers to stay with them and watch a basketball game. Claude agrees. In the evening, they watch the game and eat pizza at home over dinner with his wife. Jermaine reads Claude's essay where he describes his visit to Raphael's house and recounts literally every detail, paying particular attention to his friend's mother, how she sits, what magazines she reads, how she chews on her pen and draws the new layouts of the house. Jermaine's wife doesn't like this. Claude goes to Raphael's house again and loads his friend up with new math assignments. At this time, the boy himself is wandering around his friend's house. He walks down the steps and overhears Raphael's parents talking. Claude overhears his friend's father suggesting that his wife starts working together with him since she's only a housewife now, and they are desperately short of money. But the woman refuses and leaves. She notices his Claude and asks the boy to finish their classes as it is too late. But the boy does not leave but goes to his friend's parents' bedroom where he overhears them talking again. They discuss the necessity to hire a tutor for Raphael because Claude's help is useless. And actually, they got tired of his constant visits, all of this. The boy describes in his third chapter of the essay. Jermaine meets Claude at school and accuses the boy of spying. In response, the boy asked the teacher to not show his story to anyone. Jermaine says that Claude's piece lacks conflict. He draws examples on the blackboard of how this can be achieved, Odysseus and Achilles, to which the joyful Claude responds by shouting, "Bravo, maestro." The guy says that soon they'll have a math test, which Raphael is most likely to fail. He hints to Jermaine to steal the answers for those tests, which makes the teacher a little confused. Jermaine goes to lunch in the cafeteria and sits down with the math teacher. He tries to find out more about the upcoming test, but his colleague is too suspicious and doesn't tell him anything, two main things about what to do now, and decides to steal it after all. After school, he lingers in the teacher's lounge, and still the math teaches test papers from his locker. The man makes copies and gives them to Claude and Raphael. In the next scene, we see how Raphael's father grips his son for an A in maths, and the boy's mother thanks Claude for his help. The boy mentally repeats her name: Esther, 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 Claude. Waits until Raphael and his father leave for the game. Then he goes into the house and rings the doorbell. The door is opened by Esther, Raphael's mother. Claude lies that he forgot his math book in the house yesterday. They look for the book, but of course they don't find it. Claude compliments the woman as she smiles happily. The boy sadly tells her that his mother was gone when he was 9 years old. Esther expresses her sympathy to Claude and offers the boy a drink of Coke. They talk about life and their unfulfilled dreams, and then discuss the paintings in the house. This scene also finds its way into the essay, and Jermaine's wife, after reading it, feels that this will end very badly. Claude again gives Raphael the most difficult tasks, while he himself sneaks into his parents' bedroom and rummages through their personal belongings. There he finds documents, postcards, and even an X-ray of Esther's spine in the closet. Claude finds and examines Esther's shoes, then splashes on Raphael's father's cologne and examines the contents of all the shelves. Meanwhile, Raphael's parents return home, and Claude hides to eavesdrop on their conversation again. Germain and his wife discuss Claude's composition and decide to deep down the boy is only interested in Esther. Claude himself thinks so too, which makes Germain very angry. It's not okay to make fun of a woman who is old enough to be your mother. Germain advises Claude to bring out more of Raphael's character. The guy accepts his advice. He goes to a basketball game and watches how his friend and father play. The boy joins them. He's getting pretty good at it too. At some point, Raphael himself feels out of place in one of the classes. Students are given an assignment to write an essay about their friend. Germain calls Raphael to the blackboard. The boy talks about his friendship with Claude. The teacher thinks Raphael makes too many mistakes and criticizes him in front of everyone in the afternoon. The friends spent time studying mathematics, and Raphael complains that Germain has deliberately humiliated him in front of the whole class. The boy is even ready to beat him up, but Claude suggests another option to criticize the teacher in the local newspaper. They do so, and the material goes to the press. Germain is called it by the principal. Then he has a meeting with Raphael's father, who knocks on the table and demands respect. He grabs Germain by the neck and demands a public apology from him in the evening. Germain's wife hosts a gallery exhibition. Germain himself attends it as well among the visitors. He notices Raphael's parents frightened. Germain leaves the gallery and quickly goes home. Claude stays at Raphael's for the night. His friend shows him the toys and dolls his mother keeps. But the thing is that all of them are broken, have no arms, no legs, or no eyes. Raphael gives his friend his jersey, after which he kisses him, pummels his fist into the wall, and runs away. Claude cannot sleep, so he goes to Raphael's room. He watches his sleeping friend for a long time and then goes to his parents' room there. Claude looks at Esther's legs and strokes them. He sits down next to her and imagines her and her husband making love. After a while, Claude visits Esther again. The woman eats an apple and looks at the sky. They watch the children in the park and reminisce about the past. Claude looks at Esther with an amorous look. Later at their home, Claude overhears another conversation between Raphael's parents. The friend's father confesses that he took one of his customers to a bar with women of easy virtue, and Esther becomes enraged. They argue, and Raphael's father angrily walks away, taking a bottle with him. Claude enters the room and hands Esther a note with his poem the next day. The woman asks God to explain to her the meaning of the first line, "Even barefoot rain won't dance." Germain, who reads this chapter, seems to appear nearby and observe everything instead of explaining. Claude gently kisses Esther. Raphael sees them and runs away with tears in his eyes. Claude, however, continues to kiss Esther. In the next scene, we see the boy looking at Esther as she sleeps and describing her feelings. Claude, he's a kind of a knock. He goes to the bathroom and sees that Raphael has taken his own life with a rope. Germain reads this chapter and gets scared. He comes to class and sees that Raphael is absent. Claude doesn't tell anything. Germain runs into the teacher's lounge and asks the secretary to call Raphael's parents. They say that their son has come down with the flu concern. Germain cancels the lesson and demands that Claude explains himself. The boy admits that the whole story about Raphael's family was fiction, but he can't stop now. In the next scene, Esther confesses to her husband that she is pregnant. Raphael shows up and asks his parents to hire a new math tutor as he no longer wants to see Claude. Thus, their family gets reconciliation and happiness on the basketball court. Raphael tells Claude that he has betrayed his family, punches him in the face, and rolls him onto the ground. Germain declares to the boy that his essay is still unfinished. Claude comes to Esther and says that he wants to take her out of the house. She gives the boy Becca's poem and replies that that is impossible. The woman asks him to forget her. He hugs her and cries, then kisses her again. Esther stops him and tells him that they are moving out in the next scene. We see Claude caring for his sick father and preparing himself for school, but deciding not to go there during Germain's class, the principal enters the classroom and calls the teacher as well as Raphael to his office. At the same time, Claude goes to Germain's wife and asks to come in. The woman replies that her husband is not home, but still lets the boy in. Claude brings his teacher's books and sees one of the books written by Germain on the shelf. Claude and Germain's wife have a lunch together and discuss the books. They hear the phone ring. Germain's wife is told that her husband has been fired from the school because of a stolen math test while the woman sleeps. Claude writes the last chapter of his essay in which he describes his teacher's private life and also the bad scene between him and Jermaine's wife after classes. Jermaine returns home in a terrible mood. His wife gives him Claude's story. The man reads it and bursts into his wife's room. He sees that the woman is packing. She is going to leave him. Jermaine makes a jealous scene and throws her onto the bed, and she fights off her furious husband with a book. Jermaine falls down and passes out. Later, we see Claude visiting his teacher in the hospital. He brings Jermaine the book of his authorship. They look at the house across the street and try to guess what the women on the balcony are talking about. Jermaine has lost everything, his wife and his job, but Claude has stayed by his side to tell the teacher a new story. Do you think the guy is a genius or a cunning manipulator? Hit the like, subscription, and bell buttons, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that you'll meet fewer people like this. You've been watching the Film Reel channel. I'll see you later, thank you.